Then let's go. Yeah. Alex, welcome to this call and thank you already for taking the time. I'm excited to have you here. Just for everyone watching this, what is actually going to happen here? Alex and I will be looking at a role he is recruiting for. And the special thing about what we are going to do is that we are actually using AI, a tool called Talent Source AI, a tool I actually built to analyze all the profiles and make sure they actually fit the requirements for this role. So I'm excited to get that going. But before we get there, maybe Alex, you want to share a little bit more background about yourself and about your company. And if you want, I don't know how much you can share about this specific search, but I think that might also be interesting to anyone watching this.
Okay, so thank you, Manuel. I'm really happy to be here and doing this demo together with you. We already met before and did a few demos, so I know it's really good. The tool is really good, so I'm happy to do another go and demo it on another position. So about me, I'm Alexey. I'm a talent sourcer and also a team leader. I'm into sourcing for the last 10 years, working on all kind of roles and positions globally. In the last years, I am focusing on technical sourcing. I'm working at a company called Added Value. It's an Israeli boutique agency, and we focus actually on recruiting and sourcing for tech startups, scale-up startups, usually for technical roles, but not only, also go-to-market roles. Um, Yeah, that's basically it in short about me. And today we're gonna do a search it's a real search that I'm working on at the moment with one of our clients. The role is VP Sales, VP of Global Sales, for an Israeli startup, tech startup in the IoT industry, let's say. And the search it's quite complex, but once we start, I will explain why it's complex and we go more in details.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Um, for me, also always interesting, like how have you worked so far without using AI, and like how do you see AI impacting actually your workflows?
Wow, this is the question of the questions, no? That everybody is asking right now. So even before AI at Added Value, we always stayed the edge of the technology, always testing the latest tools to see how we can improve the work, make it more quality and faster. And of course, now it's like crazy, it's exploding with AI. But let's say before using AI tools, we used to run Boolean searches. So our sourcers are masters of writing and understanding Boolean strings,
Hmm.
not just like Java or Python, like really writing complex Boolean strings and
Yeah.
understand the logic behind it. So we used to start the search with creating the strategy, the Boolean strategy, preparing the strings, running searches. Let's talk now about LinkedIn. We also do on other platforms, running Boolean strings on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. This is the platform that we use. And once we got sufficient number of results, so not too much, not a few thousand, but not like 20 or 30. We try to target, like, let's say, to get a list of 300, 400 people, relevant people. We manually go through the sourcer go in manually through the results, using other extensions, of course, to help highlight specific
Yeah.
keywords or analyze specific technical terms on the profile. That kind of tools that help also speed up the process. Then later, finding contact details, and from there, scheduling email sequence or a LinkedIn sequence with another tool, which is also automated. This is was basically the flow till now. Now things are changing.
Okay, cool. And I mean, like, I think today the list you shared, I think there was like 800 candidates or so. So in your old workflow, like, how long would that actually someone take to screen those 800 profiles?
So the thing is, it's interesting. It's a good question because in the old way of working, I wouldn't go manually through this list
Hmm.
because, like in this way that we're gonna show today, and also that we are working now, we try to gather a larger talent pool and then screen it with AI.
Hmm.
In the old way, I wouldn't focus on that specific list. I would take that list and I would break it into smaller batches inside LinkedIn or LinkedIn Sales Navigator,
Hmm.
adding extra filters or adding extra keywords or manipulating my string to get, let's say, 200
Hmm.
best
Yeah.
candidates. Because I'm sure in this list of 700, because this list I already tested, I checked it, there are many, many very not relevant people.
Hmm.
So it's a waste of time kind of going through the whole list manually.
Okay. And just for me though to assume, like, let's say you cut it into smaller batches, and you do end up screening 800 profiles. Just for me to get an understanding about like how much time actually that would cost you. Like, what is your estimate there?
I would say that when a sourcer working on a position manually, for hard to fill position, not something very generic, like something
Yeah.
that really need of attention, I would say that in a week, a sourcer for one position, and that would take approximately 10 hours weekly.
And that's the outreach bit already. And like, how many candidates
It's
do they usually actually have to look at to get to those 60 to 100?
Actually with this amount we do not measure. We measure
Okay,
how many people were contacted because um, different roles really require different amount of profiles
true.
to
Yeah.
search.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think this gives some good context about where we're coming from, and so maybe let's have a look at where the journey is going. Let me share my screen, and we can have a look
Yeah, but
together.
Manuel, maybe before we start, maybe you also share like how you used to work before AI.
Yeah, that's a good question. So um, I build talent sourcer AI for myself, basically. So I'm sitting here actually in the Philippines. Um, I have a business called Talmore, which is an outsourcing company specifically for recruiters. And a big chunk of the work that the team was actually or still is doing is actually talent sourcing, and specifically for professional recruiters, mostly agency, and a lot of pipeline building. So like a majority of the time of the team was actually spent on reviewing or coming up with LinkedIn searches, building strategies, and then reviewing those candidates. And um, the team right now is, I think, around like 50 people. Um, and so, like, you can imagine how many hundreds of hours every month are just simply going into that process step. And I would say about like 2 years ago or so, I came to the point where I realized a lot of the work they are doing is simply pattern matching, right? Like you have built out your strategy, you have built out like your list of requirements, and then they simply have to go out and look at a profile, and they can use tools like highlighting keywords and so on. And of course, but then they review candidates and basically figure out, is this an A candidate, is this a B candidate, is this a C candidate, is this a no fit candidate? And they just have to like go through those profiles. And yeah, around 2 years ago, I came to the point where I said, like, this has to be able to be done by AI. And that's kind of where this whole journey for talent towards AI started, where I then kind of already restructured how the team is working, and like I defined basically already the handover in a way. It's also now structured with talent source AI, basically that CSV that we are going to upload now into talent source AI before we would actually give a human talent sourcer to go over, right? So and yeah, in the past it was like hundreds of hours spent every month just on that. And now we're changing things, right? Obviously, also like in an organization, like it takes some time to like be fully rolled out. But we're kind of rolling it out further and further so that the team can focus more on the strategy side and also the outreach side, the communication side, and so on. It doesn't have to spend so much time simply on reviewing the candidates. And while building this, I mean, we're gonna look at it, and I'll try to point it out, like the differences, the not just the time saved, but also I think in a lot of cases, especially when you have to do harder roles, the upside of using a system like what we're going to look at versus doing it like yourself manually or having someone else to do it, right? So I think there's the system we're looking at is just more observable, and it's easier to kind of recategorize candidates and so on if requirements change during a search and so on. So like lots of upsides next to just simply saving time. Yeah, so that's how I ended up here, and that's actually how we are using it. I'm also using actually talent source AI more and more also for sales, right? Because sales is very similar often to recruitment, where you kind of have your ICP, your ideal customer profile in mind, and you want to figure out, okay, what kind of companies are potential leads working at, what are they actually doing there, what am I looking for? So I think that's like another application for systems like Talent Source AI as well.
But Talent Sourcer AI not designed to help with business development, finding ICPs. No, it's engineered to source candidates.
Yeah, and I would say it's if it's an overkill a little bit for sales, because like in recruiting you really care about like the whole career of a candidate, whereas
Yes.
in a sales kind of setup you usually only care about what is this lead currently doing, right? So
Yeah.
it's a little bit an overkill. Like it's just like it's too powerful for actually the sales application. So I mean, obviously I just like to use it because it helps me also to just do more testing and so on. So instead of coming up with like random imaginary stuff to run tests, I rather than use it on the sales side. But I wouldn't recommend using Talent Source AI for sales. It's too powerful. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I think in the end of the demonstration, I'd love to share some concerns
Yeah.
about using tools like Talent Sourcer AI, and but not only all other sourcing AI tools, because I'm demoing all the time and I'm impressed, wow, with the results. But in the same time, I have the downsides of it, of course.
Yeah.
So I'd love to discuss it, but maybe after the demo.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Let's do that. This is Talent Source AI. You can find it at talentsourcer.ai. And what I'm opening now here is the actual solution. It always starts with creating a job opening. So global VP of Sales Global,
Yeah, or
I
just with
think.
of sales. Yeah.
Alrighty. Can organize a little bit here, but honestly, this is more for users to structure their workspace for themselves, so they're finding things. Then let's, as a next step, start creating a Sourcer briefing. And in the world of Talent Sourcer AI, the Sourcer briefing is basically the checklist, right? Like your requirements, like the checklist. Also, probably the briefing you would give a human talent sourcer if you want to delegate some work to make sure you are on the same page. Is
Cool.
this something new, Alex, or is this something you already like had always before, that you had like kind of like a checklist kind of style documentation internally?
Do you mean like when using AI or in general?
No, also before, like if you worked in your team, was that like kind of the same process,
Yeah,
or are there
same
some
process.
changes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a kickoff meeting with the hiring manager and doing the same process. Same
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah, also same like for our team, like I kind of structured it the same way. There weren't actually much changes, and I guess most companies work similarly. Talent Source AI uses here its own chatbot to actually help you create this so-called sourcer briefing. And you shared some notes in advance with me. Let me just copy this over. You can drop any kind of information in here. So like sometimes what I think is also interesting, you shared like you're having a briefing call with the client, and you take notes during it. And like for us, it was the same. And sometimes not everything actually makes its way into the notes. So something I think that's also an interesting use case is to like simply drop the transcript from a call also in here as a starting point for it. Or sometimes I drop like just a job description if there's nothing else in there, etc. So
I wanted actually to ask you a question about this.
go for
Like
it.
when you drop for the AI instructions, you can drop, like you said, the transcript of the intake call. You can also drop there the full job description and so on, right? But
Yeah.
but the thing is, also don't want to confuse the AI. Like we want to give it as simple, straightforward instructions. And many times I feel if you give it too much information, it might a bit mix up things, don't you? Or how you see this?
Yeah. I mean, the AI in general, it doesn't matter if it's in this process or anywhere, if it can get confused, right? I mean, all those models are getting better and better, but if you can limit the amount of data you drop in here, the better, right? So it's always a trade-off, basically, of how much time are you spending on distilling something versus just dropping it in here, right? So um, sometimes it's, I think, a nicer, faster way to just drop it in here and just review basically the results instead of spending
Okay.
so much of your own time to kind of limit the data you put in. And in other scenarios, it might be very fast for you to actually just like take down the more specific notes, or you look at the transcript and you know actually like what's relevant is just like those 5 minutes, right? Instead of dropping like the full transcript in here or something like that, right? So
Okay.
yeah, right. So yes, I'm totally with you. If you can limit it, limit it. Um, in some other cases, I don't know, it's just faster to review the result instead of spending so much time up front to make sure what you feed in.
Got it. Okay.
What you're looking here at now is it might seem a little bit cryptic to some people, depending on how much you've been exposed to code, etc. But what we're looking at is basically just a checklist of must-have criteria and nice-to-have criteria. And now, if we would go, is actually go over the individual requirements. Every requirement has can think of it like a title and a description. What's cool about this setup here and why I build it this way is that you actually can give a lot of guidance by having also a description. Like, so sometimes not everything is black and white. Like, sometimes you want to give a little bit of guidance how to actually come to a conclusion if a requirement is a yes or a no, right? Because the result in the end, the AI is it's going to be a true false kind of decision to be made. But how to end up there is up to you, right? So that you can basically give guidance through this description field. And maybe we go over the ones we have here now. So the first one, sales leadership experience, VP, director, head of, senior account executive. The candidate must have held a significant sales leadership role, such as VP, director, head of, or even been a senior account executive with leadership responsibility. The focus should be on leaders who not only manage teams, but also actively drive sales strategies and close deals. Is this in line with what you have in mind?
It's in line, but maybe it's better to break it down. Here is the complexity of the
Mm-hmm.
position. So maybe you can help me break it down to tell the AI. So from one hand, we need a very senior person with like let's say minimum 10 years of experience in sales. So it can be just a mid-level account executive
Mm-hmm.
on one hand. On the other hand, he will be the only salesperson in the company. So he won't be managing nobody. So even if it's going to be titled as VP of sales, he won't have a team. Maybe a bit later he will hire and
Yeah.
manage a team, but at the let's say in this year or in the upcoming year, there won't be any people management. So it's IC fully.
So You would change this from like the roles in the past to more focusing on like the time they spent in sales, or would you just add it? Because we can
Not
always
on.
later on
Yeah.
like move things around, right? Like, so we can
Okay.
have more requirements and then just afterwards figure out how do we want to rank things and weigh things. So I think if one different way to approach basically the seniority would be just by simply years of experience in sales. If I'm looking at the other requirements, I don't think we have that covered anywhere. So maybe we just want to for sure add this as one requirement. So that
Yes,
gives
let's
us a
put it.
little bit more flexibility to then afterwards kind of re-rank if you need to. So I'm using a tool here called Super Whisper to share my thoughts now with our chatbot. All right, thank you for this so far. Let's add one more must-have requirement. And that is that the candidate has more than 10 years of sales experience. Okay, and while this is going, we can look for the rest. Enterprise sales experience. Candidate must have a proven track record in closing high value deals and managing enterprise accounts. Look for mentions of working with large corporations. Okay. And experience managing complex multi-stakeholder deals. Anything to add here?
No, it's correct.
Then experience in B2B sales. Candidates should have extensive experience in business to business B2B sales. This includes working in settings where the sales cycle focuses on corporate or enterprise clients. It's okay. Global sales experience. The candidate must have demonstrated experience in selling on a global scale, covering key markets. Da, da, da. Okay, let's see. Tech startup experience. The candidate should have worked in a tech startup, indicating familiarity with the fast-paced, agile environment and resource-constrained settings. Yeah, okay. Hands-on sales and deal closing ability, not solely people management. Look for evidence that they have personally be responsible for winning key accounts in addition to managing teams. Do you want to give like, is this aligned with you generally that we have this as a requirement? And if yes, do you have anything in mind? Do you want to give more guidance here? Like, should they have held like an account executive role in the past or something similar? Or
Yes, for sure. They should have
yeah.
a hands-on executive or sales executive role. Yeah.
Okay, then maybe let's give some more guidance here. Let's update the description of the following requirement a little bit so we can give a little bit more guidance to our talent sourcer. So what we're specifically looking for here is that the candidate has held some role in the past where they were in charge of closing the deal. So that can be account executive or sales executive or other similar roles that would typically include actually closing the deals. Let's see if we have some more to add to some other requirements. Building a sales function from scratch. Since it's the first sales function in the company, the candidate should have experience in creating and establishing a sales organization. So I'm thinking a little bit always also like what kind of database or what data is the basis for the analysis. So obviously I assume actually someone would mention this in their LinkedIn. If they really were the ones building up a sales function, a sales team, probably they would mention that on their LinkedIn.
And usually, if you see a candidate who is title is, let's say, VP of sales or head of sales in a startup, usually that's what they do.
Yeah.
Maybe the AI can assume it.
Yeah, so I think that's also a good point. Let's also add this here. Let's also give a little bit more guidance on the following requirement. The talent sourcer can assume that the candidate fulfills this requirement if the candidate has held like a title like VP of sales that clearly indicates that they were in charge of that function when they were working at a small company or a startup. Okay, that's more than 10 years of sales experience. Okay, that's straightforward. And then we have as a nice to have the industry experience in fashion, IoT, or retail. Candidates with domain knowledge in these industries may have a better understanding of the market challenges and customer dynamics. Are there any other requirements in terms of like blacklists or like on the other side, like a like a positive list we want to add here?
No, we can leave it empty. We are open for everything, but there are some kind of disqualifying criteria that we should add
Okay.
also. So one disqualifying criteria is, let's say if somebody is senior sales executive or VP of sales, but he worked the entire career in one industry, for example, cybersecurity, it's a no-go.
Okay. They should have a more diverse background than that. Um, Okay, let me add this as a one. I also want to add another must-to-have requirement. The candidate should have worked in different industries before. So we don't want to see candidates that only worked in one industry. They should have at least two industries in their past that they gained some experience in. Is this specific for like just sales or generally like could they have held another role in the past in another industry and that would be okay?
No, in sales.
Okay. Have worked in a sales role in different industries before. Is there
But with,
some
but with exclusion, if it's one of the industries that we are targeting, like IoT or fashion, then it's okay.
okay. Unless the candidate has experience in then it is okay that they only worked in one industry. Okay, let's send this off. And then let's quickly review. The candidate must have held roles where they're directly responsible for closing deals, such as account executive, sales executive, or similar roles. Okay. Function from scratch. Candidate should have held leadership roles, for example, VP of sales at small companies or startups where they were in charge of establishing sales function. All right, more than 10 years. Yeah, diverse industry experience. The candidate must have worked in at least two different industries to demonstrate adaptability and broad market perspective. However, if the candidate has relevant and significant experience in fashion, IoT, or retail, then a single industry background could be acceptable. Actually, I
Yeah,
want to be
more.
I want to be more
Yeah, okay.
specific also on this one quickly. Um, the following requirement is really focused on that they have to have, if they only have one industry, and it's one of the target industries, they have to have held a sales role in that industry. I think this is not good enough. Okay, you're saying there is more.
There's more. Yes, it's pretty challenging, this thing. So because I'm working on this position for a while, I see many profiles that match all of those experience that we see above, but they work in a totally not relevant companies. So we need to kind of disqualify and exclude specific companies. So we need to disqualify outsourcing companies. We need to disqualify project companies. We need to disqualify people who worked only in large corporations, and we need to disqualify what else? People who work in, let's say, telecommunications or government agencies, or everything which is not a software building company or
And this is for the current role or like the position they currently are holding or
so this is a tricky thing. So if somebody is a mix of experiences and he is now working in a relevant company, let's say a tech startup or even a tech not startup but a big company, it could be okay. But there are many people that work in the wrong companies for us for our search during their whole career. So we need an indication that or they had a significant experience with a relevant company recently in the recent years, or they're doing it now.
I mean, we have this tech startup experience in here.
It is true, but many times it will show you people that maybe had it 10 years ago and some kind of startup because the AI thinks it's a small software company, it's a startup, but it wasn't something really impressive, let's say. And since then, in the last 10 years, they work in, I don't know, like a consultancy companies or in like banking or something which is not really relevant for us.
Okay, I would maybe focus this on the current position.
Yes,
Maybe
yes, let's do it like this. Yes, it will be better.
when you said a project company, what exactly do you mean by that?
Like software development project companies, like outsource consultancy or IT companies that outsource software development. Because many companies would be like a software development industry, let's say, because they write code, but they don't build the product. They just outsource source of software developers, and it's not what we need really.
Okay. You said large corporations. Like, what is like? When is a corporation large for you?
Let's say above 500 people.
The candidate should currently not work at one of the following types of companies. Let's add one more must-have. All right. So I think then anything else you wanted to add to it, or is that it?
Yes, one last thing. Promise. One
Okay.
last thing. Since we want somebody who will close deals and also generate leads to business development, we want somebody who is hungry and energetic. So, like, it's not like an age discrimination, but people who are working like for 30, 40 years already won't be really relevant. So, we need to also limit kind of the age.
What are we looking for?
We are looking for somebody, let's say, maybe up to 50 years old,
Okay.
approx.
There's one more must-have, and that is that the candidate should be younger than 50 years. Please use the educational history to guesstimate the age of the candidate. I guess educational and work history.
I know I make it complex, but this is
That's what the system is
yeah.
built for, to be honest, right? Like if it's so easy, then the normal LinkedIn filters are good enough, right? So the beauty in talent source AI is that those specific kind of roles where you actually would have to do so much digging and so many things to keep track of that that the system can help with that. All right. Anything else?
No, let's go. Let's do it.
All right.
Like
Let's
this.
bring this
Looks like a good
over
list.
into our Source briefing. Let's hit import. And we only have one nice to have, so not much to. The giving weight doesn't really make a big difference here, unless we want to move something from must-haves into nice to haves. Anything that you feel actually would be more nice to have than a must-have?
Let's see. No, let's keep it like this.
Okay. Alrighty, then we can go over to our candidate checks. And you shared already a CSV in advance. I separated it into two batches. So usually what I would do is I would just upload a smaller batch first. And this is just like 10 candidates or so. Just simply to like review and make sure that we align, right? So that we are basically happy about our source briefing and how AI interprets it and looks at the different candidates. So I just
And
uploaded
you
10.
can't ask the tool to review only like 10 or 20 from the whole list.
Right now, it's not a two-step process. So basically, the CSV you upload is directly also what is being checked. As always with software, everything is in motion and is being worked on. So there's a new kind of two-step process in the making. where you will be able to upload a CSV and then as a second step, basically select which ones to check. As of now, it's just like this. The uploaded
Okay.
CSV is what's going into checking. Everything is pending here now, so it takes around 2 to 3 minutes per candidate to be checked. I can check a bunch of them in parallel, so it shouldn't take too long for them to finish. And then we can look at the specific results. Alrighty, so all candidates checked now, and we see them here in this list. Since we only have one nice to have, they either have 100 or a 0 in our case here with this fit score, but this is something also I think very useful if you have more nice to haves and you actually put some weights on it, etc. So I think in this specific case where it's basically just must-have criteria, so they are a fit or they aren't, obviously we kind of have to rely to those categories. An A candidate is a candidate that has all the requirements. A B candidate would have been someone who has all must-haves and some nice-to-haves. A C candidate only has the must-haves, and a no-fit candidate is lacking at least one must-have criteria. What I would usually do is if we have this first 10 candidates checked here, is I would just open them up. All right, so if we look at the specific candidates now, we can see which requirements are actually fulfilled and which ones are not. If we hover over them, we also see why the AI thinks these are fulfilled or are not fulfilled. And I would usually then also bring up that specific candidate, right? So like I would look at them myself manually and figure out, okay, do I agree with this, right? Like, is Amir also in my mind a good candidate, an A candidate, right? Or is anything catching my eye that I realize, well, actually, no, I wouldn't like that candidate. And that usually then means that we have to go back to our Sursa briefing and either add another requirement or maybe have to fine tune a little bit the wording on how we actually defined a specific requirement. On this one here, looking at the experience, anything that catches your eye that you would disagree with AI, or do you also think this is actually a strong candidate?
It's a strong candidate, yeah. It's relevant.
Okay. Then maybe, so we can flip through them also with our arrow keys here. Next one, also an A candidate. Any objections? Or also here, same
Also,
feeling.
same feeling.
Then let's look at the C candidate. So this candidate has all must-haves, but that candidate doesn't have any relevant industry experience.
Yeah, here the problem is, but we didn't put it in the criteria that is kind of change job every year almost in the last couple of
To like,
years.
oh, he didn't stay long enough in his positions.
Yeah, but we didn't put it to the requirement, so it's okay.
But we can still put it in if you want to.
Okay. We can
What
add
would
it.
be like what would I be looking for?
I think that stayed in a company like minimum 2 years, but this is also need to kind of make an exclusion. Like if there is a company that it stayed less, it's also okay. Just the pattern. Like if you see somebody who is regularly jumping from company to company, then it's kind of be a problem, like a
Okay.
pattern.
And there would be like you don't want people that usually stay less than 2 years in a company.
Yeah,
Is that the right time? 2 years?
yeah, but only if you see it as a pattern. Like if somebody stayed less
Yeah.
once or twice, it's okay. It's not like,
Let's put this in. So there is one more must-have criteria, and that is that the candidate shouldn't be like a job hopper. So there shouldn't be a pattern that the candidate only stays less than 2 years in a company. It's okay if that happened in the past, but we don't want to see a pattern where the candidate always leaves the company before they hit their 2 years mark. But this is like, so like this is a great example, right? Like would be super hard to kind of try to like build like a mathematical filter here, right? So like to put this into like a Boolean kind of search, that kind of requirements, again, are great for AI to put it in here. And while this is updating, maybe we review some of the no-fit candidates quickly. So this candidate is lacking two must-haves: no sales function from scratch and doesn't have diverse background. So candidate's experience is primarily focused within the biotech healthcare sector and does not demonstrate exposure to a second distinct industry nor alignment with the target sectors. And here, with while the candidate has significant leadership and business development experience, there is no explicit evidence that they built a sales function from scratch. So this is why this candidate is a no fit. Are we in alignment or?
I would need to go and check the companies. I don't really know all of those companies, but if the AI says that it's all biotechnology companies, then probably it's like I don't see also relevant companies here too. So
Okay. I mean, what we also can always check is we have like the research actually here on those companies in the bottom. So we can also always just go in here basically and just double check what are those companies actually doing? How big are they? What kind of?
that's actually helpful. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of the fast way to kind of understand it. Obviously, it's not perfect, right? So we're also relying a little bit on like the data that they actually have on their LinkedIn profiles and so on. So it's not 100% coverage basically, but I would say it's 90% plus for sure. All right. So aligned with that, then I'm not sure if you want to go through all 10, but maybe we do like one or two more. Sales
Okay.
leadership experience. While the candidate has a sales manager and tour guide role. Okay. No, this does not match it. I agree. The candidate experience is primarily focused on with no clear the US or APAC markets. This is correct in your opinion? Like
What exactly?
it's focused on the EMEA region.
It's okay. It could be enough.
So
If
it should be okay, no? Like it shouldn't be a no
yeah.
here. So maybe we look at
Yes.
it. Maybe that's another thing we want to fix on the briefing.
Yeah, but he is not relevant because he's junior. He's,
Yeah.
he has like only a few years in sales and not like senior role.
Yeah.
What does it says about 10 years? It's showing that it does have 10 years of experience here, which is
Combining
true.
roles at SIO 18 months, Sebo 23, Budapest, Imbar 49, self-employed as real estate entrepreneur. Okay, so we are putting in real estate entrepreneur here. I guess you do sales stuff there, but I think we should be more strict.
Yes.
Yeah, let's add this to the briefing. We have in sales, so probably we want to be a little bit more strict about this. We want to be a little bit more concrete with the following requirement. What we mean with it is that the candidate actually worked in a sales role, not just, I don't know, was an entrepreneur doing sales or something. Like we're specifically talking about the job titles. Okay, one more maybe. Okay, I think this region thing we didn't formulate good enough. Like, so it's kind of looking for candidates that have all three.
All three. Yeah.
So I think we have to also clarify there a little bit. Come on, Sam Altman. Put more computer on this. Okay, then let's quickly review the job hopping also. Candidate should not exhibit pattern of job hopping, meaning they should not consistently leave positions before completing at least 2 years. Okay, that's good. I want to clarify something about the following requirement. I think we need to be more specific. What will like it's okay if they have experience just in one of those regions. They don't have to show that they have experience in all of the mentioned regions. So yeah, but that's kind of the typical workflow, and I guess also like when I look back on how we worked before using this, that would typically also be one cycle, right? Like where the human talent sourcer would go out, basically look for a bunch of like candidates, kind of go back and have like an alignment meeting and just basically say, hey, is this candidate okay versus this candidate? are we aligned on this? And basically we're going through like a similar workflow here just to make sure like, okay, we are actually really aligned. And it's normally like if you look at 10, 15 candidates max, you kind of, you get there, right? So let's just bring this over and then we would create a new source briefing. And we're just going to call this version 2. Save it. Import. And let's just double check here quickly.
Maybe you know what? Let's maybe put building from scratch in nice to have, because it might disturb our search a bit, because not I think not all of them would mention it exactly like this.
Okay. Let's move it down. What kind of weight would you put on it? Do you have can go between 1 and 10?
Leave it in 5. Yeah.
Both of them. Okay. All right. Then I think we're good. Shall we just go for the whole batch and run it through?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Yeah.
So the candidates are now all lined up. The first one's coming in here. We haven't really spoken about like what the basis actually mean. We looked a little bit at some of the research here, but maybe also to share a bit like what's actually happening now in the background, right? So for all the candidates that we upload, the system is automatically pulling their LinkedIn profiles via like some third-party data providers. The LinkedIn profiles of all past and current employers, the Crunchbase profiles if existing. Then we have some autonomous agents that also do a little bit more background research on those companies. And then you have this research package on employers plus the LinkedIn profile of the specific candidate. And that's then kind of the basis for AI to actually look at those individual candidates and figure out, okay, which requirements are actually fulfilled and which requirements are not fulfilled. So it's kind of like a 2-step or 3-step process. That's why it's a little bit different to like, in the past when you use just Boolean search or so, it's just like a database. You basically just run a search over. There doesn't have to happen much else. So it can be very fast. Here in this system, there's like a whole pipeline of data generation and AI that is being executed on top of it.
So just about what you said in the background. So before the AI is working and giving it the score, the system pulling the profiles from a third-party data provider.
Correct, yeah. So these are all fresh profiles because obviously it's the most powerful setup you can run because it's the freshest data, but it comes at a price point, right? So
How
I'm not
fresh
sure how
it is, by the way.
daily. So if they don't have something from today, I think they go out and basically refetch that. Alrighty, I'm not sure if we managed to actually already scan all of them. Looks like it.
I also wanted to ask you, you have many people, or not many, that are not a fit and still get 100. How is it possible?
So the fit score is calculated based on the weighted average of the nice to haves.
Okay, got it.
Right. So if we open one here, this candidate is lacking one must have, but it has both nice to have. Right. So like
Okay.
the fit score really just looks at the nice to haves and the weight of it, and the must haves are really treated as like, hey, if you don't have this, you're out, right? Like you're no
Okay.
fit. That's kind of the idea behind it. So yeah, I think that we are done. We just checked 871 candidates, and yeah, so like if we open them up, I think this is actually one we also looked at earlier.
Yes. What is the difference between A and B?
So A candidates have really all requirements fulfilled. B
Also the nice to have.
candidates, yeah,
Okay.
and B candidates have all must-haves of sure, and also some nice-to-haves. C candidates
Okay.
only have the must-haves, and no-fit
Okay.
candidates are lacking at least one must-have criteria. Yeah, so basically went through the flow. Now we checked all of them. Next step would basically be to filter down the list to whatever you are interested in. And then we just simply click export CSV, and that now it just sends me a link via email that allows me to download that CSV. And
Okay.
yeah, happy to share that with you. This one, and I'll share the full one also with you, with all of the candidates. And yeah, feel free to reach out to them. And I hope that helps with the role you're working on. Any questions after like walking through this? Like anything that you feel like you want to point out or question? You said initially already you have some concrete questions actually, like what makes sense and maybe what some stuff that doesn't make sense for using AI.
Yes. So first of all, it's amazing, just really amazing. It's the second tool that I see that doing something similar to what you were showing, and I really love the idea. I think it really can save so much time. It does require like at the beginning of the flow more attention and time, and really to build it correctly. So it's like you're building the base, you're spending most of your time there, as you said, strategically.
Yeah.
Uh, so what could happen uh, if you don't do it good enough? Then you basically screw up the whole flow later. So
Yeah.
if you did not so good search on LinkedIn in the first place, or you didn't explain to AI exactly what you want, then later you will get like a qualified list, which is not really qualified. You need to start over and spend
Yeah.
time.
So I think it's if you're used to really doing it all yourself, you have to learn how to delegate, right? So like I see the same thing happening actually before in my outsourcing company
Yeah,
when
it's the same.
people
Yeah,
have to learn like how to delegate. The thing, like the difference though is like a human can only source so fast, right? So
yeah,
you can basically get a month of work done within minutes with the system. So like you can just run way longer into like the wrong direction if you give not a good briefing, if you don't delegate well in the beginning, right? So it's super important that this first step like is well done so that you have to basically train yourself and practice how to delegate efficiently and how to double check initially to make sure you are aligned. I'm with you. So like this is the critical part of the whole
yeah.
process.
Okay, so this is one. And the second thing is, which is a bit concerning me, profiles that are pretty empty profiles that don't have much data. So, for example, for sales role, like we did now, it wouldn't be a problem because salespeople love to talk about themselves and what they achieved and what they do, let's say. But
Mhm.
yours, let's say I'm doing a different search for a security researcher. Yeah, those guys like to stay in the shades,
Yeah.
and I had many searches like that, and many of them would have maybe name, job title, and the job title many times wouldn't be even a security researcher. It will be like R&D,
Yeah.
or and then it would be have a company name, and then it would have maybe army experience because they did something similar in
Yeah.
the army. They would write the name of the army unit and title, and then in the skills maybe you would find two three skills that might be indicating that they are good.
Yeah.
I imagine that for AI it would be kind of unclear if a profile is matching or not matching.
I mean, honestly, the question is, can you do it? Like, so you know what I mean? Like, if you as a human look at the profile and you can come to a conclusion, I think AI can do the same. It's just a matter of like, can you actually verbalize how you're looking at the profile, right? So, like, if you can actually tell someone, this is how you look at the profile like this, and this is how you actually judge if that requirement is a given or no, then the AI can do it, right? But for sure, you need guidance, right? And there are obviously also some roles out there where honestly just sourcing on LinkedIn is not the right fit, right? Where
Yeah,
like you don't find the people there or the people like don't put the information and doesn't matter if you use AI or a human to look at the profile. Like if you don't have the data, you cannot come to a conclusion. It's not the AI, it's simply
the
LinkedIn
data.
is not the right channel, right? Like so you have to find them somewhere else.
But for example, if I find someone like that on LinkedIn who is just saying security R&D and D and a company name, and I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. I Google his name. I try to find this person maybe on Twitter. I try to find this person on I don't know, maybe he published a blog or whatever, and I can make some kind of more. smart decision,
Yeah.
which based on this screening, it won't happen at this point, right?
Well, I mean, we're doing research on the companies, right? So if they actually have a
Mm-hmm.
job there, they don't put something on their individual profile, but there's a company link to it. We do research on the company. And I'm fully with you. Like it's not AI cannot fully replace every human working on every search, right? So I think there is still a place for humans sourcing talents in a more manual approach, specifically when it comes to like those very, very niche roles where you don't find them on LinkedIn, or you just look for like, I don't know, um, like some other data points, right? Where you really have to do more digging. As of now, I would argue like you probably would still have a human do that. Will it stay like this? I'm not sure.
No,
So,
I think it's
right. So like
pretty. I think an AI, yeah,
it's a factor
yeah,
of cost, right? Like, so
yeah.
there are lots of tools out there that in theory can do all this. Like if you look at deep research, right? Like, or deep search, like a lot of that stuff, if you plug in the right prompt there, you can surface and you can come to a conclusion. It's just simply, as of now, cost is still prohibitive, right? Like to put this
Mm-hmm.
into like a standard workflow like this would just be like, this would be another overkill, right? But if you only work
Mm-hmm.
on roles like that and you need that for every role, then maybe it makes sense, right? It's
Yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
in a standard tool like this, probably it will take a while until the costs come down to a point where I just implement it here and it's being done automatically on every candidate for every role.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it will be part of the flow. Let's say even in a year, it maybe
Yeah.
won't cost so much, and it will be possible. But another thing is concerning me is, from the list I gave you, it's found 100 and something people fit.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the other 600, I don't know, 50, maybe hiding my hire, and I would never
Could be,
look there
yeah.
because, and the AI told me not, but it's hallucinating. It has his own way of thinking. So would you trust? Like you wouldn't touch this. Like it gave you this list of 150 qualified. So if you blindly believe the AI, you would never go and look in the other 650.
It depends, right? So it's a good question though, because actually I want to show something. So like I would usually like start here, right? Because like this is kind of or I mean I have it all again. Like I would start with like the 190 here, the 190 that made it through. I think somewhere we're still pending earlier when we looked at it. And I would start there, right? But it's similar to what you described initially. You would kind of move into batches, right? And so, like, maybe you would go and look at the A candidates and message them, I don't know, an in-mail. So you have faster with them. And maybe with the B candidates, you put them into another outreach campaign where you send the connection request first and so on. So it takes a little bit longer, right? And maybe you make it all the way to the end of the 190 and you haven't done a hire yet. And similarly to your normal approach before, you would then expand, right, your search. And maybe you would go in then and say like, hey, actually looking at all my must-haves, mm, maybe this younger, I don't know, whatever it is, yeah, maybe, what is it here? Maybe this
Maybe not 10
global
years of
sales experience.
experience. Yeah, yeah. Maybe not
Maybe
10
this we
years.
would,
Maybe yeah.
right, we move this down and then the 10 years maybe you also put on as a nice to have, and then you would go in here and say click save and recategorize. And now what the system does in the background is it's going over all the candidates again and basically recategorizing it and also recalculating the fit score, right? So
Yes, I'm with you.
and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I um I wouldn't completely say, hey, we never look at the other ones. In the end of the day, it's like with the human approach, you try to prioritize this talent pool and try to move forward through it, right? It's just like you know now exactly this is where, and you don't have to go manually over the 800 candidates to find the first 190 to start with. You just took 10 minutes basically to get the first 190 you know you want to prioritize. And you might still like afterwards go through like the rest of the talent pool, either via talent source AI, or maybe also you want to look at some manually, etc. Right? Um, so yeah.
Amazing, Manuel. Thank you so much. This is really
Thank you,
kind of
Alex.
mind blowing. This technology. I'm sure this would be like a daily thing of every sourcer. Maybe not now, but in a few months, up to a year, I think it would be like a must to have. So Best of luck. Best of luck. You know,
Thank
getting
you, and
it
thanks for your
out there.
time and your feedback. I appreciate that.
And I'd love to get the list.
Yes, I'll send it over right after.
Thank you so much.
Alex, take care. Speak soon.
Take care, Manuel.
Bye bye.
Speak to you soon. Bye bye.